ladies and gentlemen. What I want to speak about is what's happening in Melbourne, Victoria and in New South Wales. We seem to have a youth crime crisis where people are getting their houses home invaded, they're getting knives held to their throat and guns held to their head. And the Premier of Victoria is not doing anything about it. She's letting these teenagers be lawless, like what happened in Queensland. And very clearly, Victorians, you need to start listening. If you're not careful, what happened in Queensland is going to get out of control in Victoria and New South Wales. Also, this is happening under Labor's watch in Western Australia. And the Greens, and especially Miss Faruqi, and the Labor premiers, Victoria, New South Wales and Western Australia, allowing these kids to go to shopping centres and stab people, break into people's houses, smash their property, smash their cars, and they are allowed to be let out of the custody half an hour later, and people's lives are getting turned upside down. And poor innocent Australians are getting killed in their homes, killed on the streets, kids are getting stabbed in shopping centres, and we've got a Prime Minister who won't do anything about this. People have a right to be safe in this country, and under Labor in Victoria, New South Wales and Western Australia, these kids are allowed to do what they like to hard-working Australians. You got people like Miss Faruqi not coming out and protecting Jewish people. But this is why these kids are allowed to be lawless, and they're allowed to stab, home invade, because you've got a Prime Minister, you've got a Premier of those three states, and let this go on. It's time for Australians to really show Labor the door, show the Greens the door. There's a by-election coming up in Paran in Victoria in 6 weeks, and it's very clear. The Liberal Party have got a proposal to bring law and order back to Victoria, and that's what should happen. Adult crime, adult time, adult crime, adult time. But we've got a Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, it's allowing people to come into this country, young kids coming here on visas and becoming citizens, and they're killing our white Australians, home invading houses, black and white houses, where you see what happened in Melton, Victoria the other day, where a man's property got smashed up, his car got smashed up, and his house was left in disrepair by these lawless juveniles who are allowed to be back on the streets. They're allowed to kill, they're allowed to stab, they're allowed to hold guns to people's head.
In tears and still shaking, father of 7 Khamis recalls a night from hell. 7 gang members armed themselves with machetes and guns and stormed the Melton home where his family was sleeping.
They are pointing the gun on my head here.
And the Labor Party do nothing about it. And it's very clear we've got a Prime Minister that turns a blind eye to this. We've got a Deputy Leader of the Greens, Miss Faruqi, who turns a blind eye to this lawless behaviour. Because she thinks it's okay to hurt Jewish people. She thinks it's okay to burn the flags and the rest of it and do nothing about it. That's why we've got these juveniles killing people, home invading and the rest of it. This is a message to the Human Rights Commissioner, the World Human Rights Commissioner. Very clearly, a juvenile should be treated the same as anybody else. If you home invade, you kill or steal cars or arm rob any person or business, you should be treated the same way as an adult. But see, you've got a Labor Prime Minister who actually turns a blind eye to this. You've got a Labor Prime Minister who's caused this homeless problem by letting nearly 1 million people in here, and now there's no housing for anybody, and does nothing about it. You've got a Premier in New South Wales, it's got people living in public housing, it's got mould on, and the Minister does nothing about it. She turns a blind eye, even though there's special legislation about this. You've got problems with these Labor politicians, and we need to remove the Prime Minister. We need to remove Miss Faruqi from public office. And it's time we show Richard Cook the door in Western Australia in February. It's time we show Jacinta Allen from Victoria, the Premier, the door. And it's time we show the Premier of New South Wales the door.
because it's very clear people have a right not to get stabbed in their homes. People have a right to buy property in New South Wales, and these developers get away with what they like. But see, Labor turns a blind eye because the CFMEU are behind it. So please, Australians, there's elections coming up federally and state in some states. Let's show Labor the door. Let's show Labor the door and the Greens the door in the by-election in Paran in 6 weeks, and bring some law and order back to this country and start deporting people and sending a strong message to people like Miss Faruqi. It's time you go, because you're racist to white Australians. Thank you. My name's Adam.